One thing that has happened here over the last couple of days is that LSU football has put together quietly the best defensive staff in college football, I think, here in the offseason, or at least the best defensive staffs that they could go out and buy. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. When you got it, spend it. When you're a big boy, when you're a big dog in college football and you have the resources, the Alabama job opened up a week ago today, and there was talk of a $20 million buyout to Dan Lanning's contract at Oregon. Alabama, it felt like never blinked. Exactly, right? $20 million to schools like that, or the buyout that LSU had to pay for the former staff, and then the contracts that they had to commit to the new staff. Whatever it takes in the world of college football, money's not the object. Money's not the issue, especially at these big-time schools that are in these leagues with these television contracts that are divvying up, and the take is somewhere near $40 million a year per school and climbing and increasing. But over the last couple of days, Brian Kelly deserves an enormous amount of credit for how he has put this staff together. And I know that we've talked a lot about the possibility of Bo Davis and Corey Raymond joining the staff for now months. It's been over a month and a half since we first started talking about that. And over the last 24 hours, to be able to seal the deal with Corey Raymond was enormous on this staff. Also, bringing over another Missouri staffer and someone familiar with LSU and Josh Olson, who was on the staff in 2021 as an analyst and traveled with Baker over to Missouri, a guy that's almost kind of like a miniature version of, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, just with not as much experience as Baker, as a Blake Baker. A guy that can help you coach the linebackers, help you coach the safeties, help you coach the special teams. He's been an analyst. The guy is kind of a hybrid on the defensive side of the ball, so somebody that can really, really help you in some areas, in another key addition to this staff. When I was thinking about the defensive staff from the outside looking in, kind of talking about the life of this story. 6 weeks ago, I was really under the assumption that Matt House was going to be retained. And after a couple of people that we spoke to, Matt House was under the kind of the nature that he was going to be retained even at the bowl game. He had been told that by Brian Kelly and staff that he was keeping him. The bowl game did not go as planned. Some things happened after the bowl game. Some people from the administration got involved. And next thing you know, LSU's looking for a brand new staff, like an entire new staff. So from there, I really thought you go in and get a good defensive coordinator. You're able to land Bo Davis, bring in somebody like Corey Raymond at the defensive side. That's a huge win. Not really even thinking about guys like Kevin Peoples, who is a dominant recruiter and someone whose respect is growing enormously within the game as a teacher and a developer of guys on the edge, and someone that is very well respected within Blake Baker's, kind of mini coaching tree that he's starting to build. And then, a guy like Jake Olson, who we talked about, who has a very, wide variety of a skill set that he brings to a staff that, is, when you look at it now, when you look at this defensive staff, you step back and look at it, you've now got the young, bright, motivated, hungry defensive coordinator that seems to be in a spot. Talking to people who have been alongside Baker now for the, week and a half, week plus that he's been on the job. His energy, his passion, his love, all of that stuff just very contagious within his position, within, his element. Loves being at LSU, wife's from LSU, the South Louisiana people. My point being is that Blake Baker's not looking around. He's not looking to springboard this opportunity into the next one. I mean, sure, he'd love to climb the coaching ladder, but at this point, very content in being LSU's DC at this point in his career. I mean, you're talking about a young, hungry, bright, and now well-compensated defensive coordinator in a position where he's got all the resources, he's got the recruiting grounds, he's got all of the support that he needs to put together the plan, the defense that he needs. So you've got the defensive coordinator. You go out and you get a name in Bo Davis that rattles the living rooms, rattles college football when you talk about placing him at a place like LSU. This is home for Bo Davis. Played here, starting his coaching career here, familiar with guys like Corey Raymond, Frank Wilson, Blake Baker. And now you put him back in the LSU polo as the highest paid defensive lineman, as the highest paid defensive line coach in college football, alongside Corey Raymond, who's now back at home. And look, we'll open this up and we can talk about Corey Raymond. And I know some people are, Corey Raymond's overrated. What has he done? What's his on-field development? All that stuff. And for, you know, the conversation, I understand that there is, you know, the other side to wondering how Raymond fits in. But you put him on this staff, on this defensive staff, with now guys that can, you know, what has been the criteria that we've talked about throughout this entire process? Can you win in the living room? Can you develop on the field? Can you have the guys prepared for Saturday? And then can you get them drafted? All of those guys now have on their resume and have had on their resume all of those boxes that we were talking about needed to be checked. I mean, Brian Kelly has put together a defensive staff that now rivals his offensive staff. I mean, the offensive staff at LSU, to me, is the standard of the sport. I mean, there's as good of an offensive staff, even without Denbrock, that exists in the sport. When you're talking about Brad Davis, Joe Sloan, Cortez Hankton, Frank Wilson, and you've got some behind-the-scenes staffers that are pretty good at really good at their job as well. But all of those guys have the reputation of being elite recruiters and have the skins on the wall and the resume that tells you they can develop players, and then you turn on your television on Sunday, and a lot of the guys that are out there making plays played for them in college. Now on the defensive side, you've got a very similar tree in guys that have the respect from everybody. I mean, you could see the recruits were reacting on social media. People within the transfer portal were reacting, obviously, on social media. Coaches, media members. I mean, it's a whoa. LSU is taking their defensive struggles for real, and they are committing to getting them right. You bring guys in like Bo Davis, Blake Baker, Kevin Peoples, Jake Olson, and now Corey Raymond. That's a hell of a defensive staff. I mean, like, that is a Brian Kelly. I mean, that's raising some eyebrows of, you know, with what's going on with the power shifts in college football. And who knows how the domino is going to fall in Ann Arbor with Michigan. And that could really open up, you know, the national power of the sport when you're talking about the reigning national champ. And now with Saban out, you know, probably the most recognizable coach in the sport.
This thing's so wide open again.
I mean, if he's on the move to Los Angeles, yesterday he interviewed for the Atlanta Falcons job. If he takes one of these NFL gigs, I mean, college football's wide open. And I know that there was a Yahoo report with Brian Kelly's name being tagged to the Michigan opening if it was in fact to become vacant. And Bruce Feldman reported it over The Athletic.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to be convinced that Michigan would sincerely be interested in Kelly. I mean, really, and that's no, that's not a slight on Kelly. I just think that, for where Michigan is, where they want the program to really go, they've got some guys internally that they can look and turn to, that they can just kind of keep the thing moving as is. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would have to see Brian Kelly being a legit candidate at Michigan before I would believe it. Does it seem like Brian Kelly has interest in the Michigan job? Yeah, look, these reports aren't just popping up out of nowhere. I mean, somebody internally, whether it's his agent representation or somebody within the coaching circles or industry, has some information on some good authority that they want their name out there. They want their name to be in this circle. This stuff doesn't just happen. Bruce Feldman has, a reputable, as solid of a national media career in college, covering college football as anybody out there right now. I mean, for him to put that news out to the public, somebody on well authority has told him that. And he's not saying that Michigan is interested in Kelly. It just seems like Kelly's name is popping up around this Michigan job because it feels like Kelly's side wants that to happen. I may be wrong, but I mean, it doesn't feel like the Michigan side saying, hey, we would be interested in Brian Kelly if Jim Harbaugh left, right? I mean, it would be the Brian Kelly side saying, hey, if Jim Harbaugh leaves,
I'll listen.
We would be interested in that job. And, you can hate,